Hello everyone. I just wanted to let you all know that this documentary is made within Jurassic World Evolution 2. So it's a game related to Jurassic Park/World. So the dinosaurs are inaccurate. So I kind of took advantage of that and had more fun with this than making the documentary accurate. So there is probably a handful of events that happen in this documentary that would never have played out the way that they do in real life. Alright, on to the video. Hope you guys enjoy it, as I spent a lot of time making this. We now finally find out what the Carcharodontosaurus smelled from at the end of the last episode. The Carcharodontosaurus is currently stalking and waiting for the time to strike upon what it smelled last time. A herd of migrating sauropods. This herd consists of the sauropods, Rebbachisaurus, Paralititan, and smaller sauropods. However, two more Carcharodontosaurus have entered the area, and they too are waiting for the perfect time to strike, so that they can get more of the chance of taking down a sauropod. But our Carcharodontosaurus will have none of that. He decides that the time is now, and he strikes. The sauropod herd breaks into a panic. The Carcharodontosaurus lumbers around the sauropod herd, looking for its next victim to attack. And the other Carcharodontosaurs around the area do the same. The Carcharodontosaurus has locked in to its next victim, a Rebbachisaurus. Now, the sauropod herd is finally leaving the area. And now that the Carcharodontosaurus have had their fill, the sauropod herd should hopefully be able to travel to their destination in peace. Although, they are now traveling without a sizable chunk of the herd. They lost some of their herd, either to the Carcharodontosaurus or from some of the herd getting spooked away and getting lost in the wilderness, unable to find their way back to the herd. Just like these two Rebbachisaurs and this Paralititan. Now that the sauropod herd is traveling off into the distance, some Carcharodontosaurs take this time to rest, while other Carcharodontosaurs take this time to feast upon the carcasses left behind from the recent massacre. And all while the attack upon the sauropod herd is happening, even more Carcharodontosaurs showed up in the area than the original 3. This has resulted in there not being much food to go around, at least when everyone here is apex predators who don't like to share their food. And because of this, sometimes fights break out over who gets to eat which carcass. But sadly, some Carcharodontosaurs weren't so lucky to make it this far, and were killed while the sauropods defended themselves. But thankfully, these Carcharodontosaurus corpses serve as good food for the Carcharodontosaurus in the area who are unable to win the fights for the right to feast upon one of the sauropod carcasses. But thankfully, the Carcharodontosaurus that we were following before came out of all of that unscathed. And now, he goes back to his original territory. The sauropod herd has now been traveling for some time. The sauropod herd's calls can be heard for miles within the canyons, due to their calls bouncing off the walls of the canyon. As the sauropod herd travels, they kick up a large amount of dust. In some of the more dense part of the herds, as you look down towards the ground, it almost gives the appearance of a forest made of legs. And if you look up, it gives the appearance of a forest made of long dinosaur necks. Thankfully, most of the herd you see before you got away from the previous Carcharodontosaurus attack with minor wounds. However, some were unlucky, such as this old female Paralititan, which is now falling far behind the herd, and she succumbs to her wounds. And passes away. Although not all is doom and gloom, as her body will be used as food for smaller carnivores around the area that are too small to take down a fully grown, healthy sauropod, such as these Abelisaurs. And although they just lost a beloved member of their herd, they must continue on through the canyon if they want to get to their destination on time and before the dry season starts. And even though it might not be abundantly clear right now, the dry season is coming up fast. After several hours of walking throughout the canyon, the sauropods have finally reached their first pit stop. The sauropod herd usually always travels on the same migration path every single year, and this is always their first pit stop. The sauropods usually come here to fill up their stomachs for the rest of the migration trip. The smaller sauropods usually eat the small, low-lying plants on the ground. The Rebbachisaurs usually eat the medium-sized trees and the lower leaves on the tall trees. And the Paralititan usually eat the leaves from the very tippy top of the tallest trees around here. The sauropod herd also comes here to drink, which is important when they're walking through a baking hot desert the whole entire day. Some of the sauropods within the sauropod herd also take this time to take a well-deserved nap. But the main driving force of the sauropods to come to this area is so that they can find a mate, so that the male sauropods, once they reach their destination, can immediately start making nests for the female sauropods, and the female sauropods can lay their eggs. Sauropods rub their faces and necks up against each other to show affection. The sauropod herd starts to move on from their pit stop. However, they have now lost even more members of the herd. Some sauropods died due to fighting over mates. And just like with the old female Paralititan, although it is sad that these creatures died, these sauropods now serve as food for smaller creatures in the area, such as these flies. The sauropod herd traveled throughout the night, and they have now reached their destination. The destination they've been traveling to this whole entire time is the area where the sauropods raise their young during the dry season. This small area in the canyon is a good spot to do that because the surrounding shade from the tall canyon allows this small area to retain its water. Thus, the plants can continue growing year-round. As soon as the sauropods get here, they do the same exact thing that they did at the pit stop earlier. They eat, they drink, and they sleep. But once the sauropods are done doing that, most of the male sauropods will start to create nests so that the female sauropods can lay their eggs. The male sauropods have now created the large nests for the females, and the females have now laid their eggs. Once the females lay the eggs within their nests, the males go out to gather multiple different types of plants in order to cover their eggs. One, so that there's less of a chance that predators will get to their eggs, and two, so they have some shade from the sun. Although sadly, not all of the sauropods have been able to cover their nests in foliage. And since last year when the sauropods are here, there's been a new visitor who is now settled down. A Dromaeosaur. And this Dromaeosaur sees this as the perfect opportunity to steal some eggs. The Dromaeosaur makes a break for it into the sauropod nesting site. The Dromaeosaur looks around to see if she can spot any nests that have yet to be covered in foliage. She spots one. She runs over to the nest, but she's very light on her feet, making her very inconspicuous while doing so. The Dromaeosaur starts to eat some of the eggs from the nest. She has been spotted. The Dromaeosaur makes a break for the forest. However, she must cross the small body of water separating the sauropod nesting site from the forest. In that small body of water are crocodilians. The Dromaeosaur has been killed by a couple of crocodilians. So now, thankfully, the sauropod herd doesn't have to worry about any predators. Well, that is until their babies hatch, and then they'll start having to look out for those crocodilians. However, sadly, this Dromaeosaur was a mother, and now her babies will die without her there to look after them. The sauropod herd will now protect their nests all the way up until their eggs hatch near the end of the dry season. And once their little sauropodlets get a grip on how to walk, the adults and the babies will walk all the way through the canyon out onto the open deserts and forests of the Kem Kem Group. And then once the wet season nears its end, the sauropods will once again gather into a mixed herd and travel through the canyons all the way to this spot. And this same cycle will continue for millions of years. It is now the dry season, and this is what the forest from the last episode has now become. But thankfully, both the female and male sauroniops from last episode are currently still alive. The pair have now had children, and the female is currently sleeping on top of their nest, in which all of this nearly dead foliage is covering their eggs. Both of the sauroniops are currently sleeping in order to save up as much energy as they possibly can, as water and food are scarce during this time of year. And during this time of year, both the female and male almost look exactly alike. They have both changed into their dry season colorations, with a white stomach and the rest of their body being all yellow, to blend in with the desert sand, as they are much more vulnerable to the apex predator of the Kem Kem Group, the Carcharodontosaurus. And the sauroniops are smart, and they've stocked up some small herbivores as food. However, they must eat them soon if they want to have a meal that might not give them some sort of sickness due to them rotting. And this is what became of the swamp from the last episode. It is mostly all dried up, with only small amounts of water at the bottom of the riverbed, with a couple of plants still growing near them. And there's also multiple dead creatures on the bottom of the dried up riverbed, such as this leptoclidid plesiosaur. And this is sad, as this swamp was once teeming with life, with multiple different types of fish swimming through it, such as Diplomystus, and other creatures swimming through it as well, such as, again, the leptoclidid plesiosaurs. This Spinosaurus, which just so happens to be the same Spinosaurus from last episode, is currently guarding this plesiosaur carcass. The reason why he needs to guard it is because of the food being scarce around here. However, with food being scarce around here, there's another predator who might want that carcass. A Carcharodontosaurus. Which, just like with the Spinosaurus, just so happens to be the same one from last episode, and at the beginning of this one as well. But due to the lack of areas to go to for other food, this Carcharodontosaurus will have to fight for the carcass. As the fight is getting nowhere, the two decide to call it off. So the Carcharodontosaurus leaves with possibly life-threatening injuries, yet no plesiosaur carcass. And shortly after, the Carcharodontosaurus is slowly succumbing to its wounds. And same with the Spinosaurus. And yet another short time later, both of these apex predators die near one another. And hopefully after watching this documentary, you understand that life is beautiful, yet harsh.